Well, welcome to Thought for the Day. I'd like to let you into a little secret of the fish household. We're rather fond of cryptic crosswords. It's quite a nice thing to do towards the end of the day. So when we've finished our work, we tend to print off the crossword for the day and see how far we can get before bed. I don't know if you know how cryptic crosswords work. The clue is a little phrase. And within that phrase, somewhere, at one end of the phrase is a definition of the answer, and the other end of the phrase is some other way of making that word, often with wordplay, messing around with the letters and things. So one clue in the crossword we did yesterday was parking in wrong drive, and the answer was spin, because you go for a drive, you go for a spin. And parking, the sign for parking is a P sign. Wrong is... Another word for wrong is sin, so you put the word for parking in the middle of sin and you get spin, which means drive, so parking in wrong drive. And the clue gives a nice little image, I guess, of getting home and a row of similar houses and you park in the wrong drive. And it's got a little bit of humour in it. Sometimes the humour is a bit more pointed. I remember a clue from several years ago, in the aftermath of the Iraq War, which was TORY ? Lib ? And erratic politician. And the answer was Tony Blair, because if you take the letters of Tory and Lib and Ann, and then make them erratic, mix them up, you get Tony Blair. And of course, at that time, some people were questioning what really are Tony Blair's politics. So Tory ? Lib ? And erratic politician Tony Blair. And sometimes humour kind of sticks with us, doesn't it? I remember that clue from however many it was years ago. It was 12, 13 years ago. But sometimes clues hit home a little bit deeper, and sometimes there is a humour there that has something to say to me. Humour, Terry has commented a few times, humour is very, very powerful. And there was a clue in a crossword last week, which was this. Nice graph represented Vicar's work. I couldn't actually solve it, Helen solved this one. And the answer to that one was preaching. Because if you take the letters of nice graph, you represent them, you represent them, you put them in a different order, you get the word preaching. And it just tickled my kind of imagination, because it really set out sort of two ways I can live my life, two ways I can do my work. I can look at the nice graphs, the things that make me feel good. I can look at how many followers we've got on Facebook. I can look at how many views there are of our YouTube videos. I can follow the latest of some news story or something that tickles my fancy, and I can do those things that make me feel good. And there's nothing wrong with doing that to an extent. Although I think we need to be careful. Because in the Bible there are warnings against too much counting. King David, 3,000 years ago, once towards the end of his life, suddenly decided to count how many soldiers he had, and God wasn't at all pleased with that. God said, trust me for things like that, the outcomes. Fulfill your calling. And of course for me as a vicar, preaching is my calling, proclaiming that amazing good news of who Jesus is, and the fact that God's made a new way for us to be right with him, not one that we can earn, not one through having to keep a whole lot of rules, but by entering into an amazing relationship, being adopted into his family. And that clue, nice graph, represented Vicar's work, preaching, made me think about, do I spend my time doing the things that make me feel good? Or do I spend my time fulfilling the calling that God has for my life? And maybe it's a question you'd like to reflect on. How do you spend your time? Is it just following the latest ideas and stories, flicking through Facebook, or whatever news stories fascinate you, sports results, or not much of those at the moment? Or is it fulfilling the calling that God has for your life? It's very easy to fritter away our time on the things that, make us feel good, but they're not God's true calling on our life. But when we fulfill our true calling, then we find true fulfillment, true purpose, true meaning. God has a calling, a purpose for each of our lives. Maybe it changes from season to season. Maybe you have a calling to be a husband or a wife, a son or a daughter to an aging parent, or a parent to children, or maybe in your work to work with children or vulnerable people, or to make the best whatever it is your company makes, or contribute to that. Make sure that you recruit the right people for jobs. Whatever it is your calling is, whether it's in your work or your life outside work, fulfill your calling today. Discover what it is, and discover real purpose, and don't just fritter away today on those things, those nice graphs that make you feel nice. A nice graph represented Vicar's work, and I pray that I will fulfill my calling today, and hope you do too. God bless.